Hey, friendly first graders, it's Miss Glass, and you are looking at a map of the United States. Up here at the red dot is Cincinnati. That's where we live. And today, the story I'm going to read to you takes place in a really cool town called Nicodemus, Kansas. So here's our state, Ohio. Kansas is way over here. So I'm going to use Google Earth to fly us to Nicodemus. Nicodemus is an amazing town. If you've been in my class, then we talked a lot about how in the past in the United States, some really horrible things were done to Black people. We have talked about how Black people in the United States were enslaved for a really long time, forced to work for white people with no pay, and then there was a war and slavery ended. But for a lot of those newly freed Black people, the struggle wasn't over because they didn't have any money, they didn't have any land. This story is about a family who leaves where they had been enslaved and comes to this new town of Nicodemus. Now, in real life, Nicodemus was settled by a group of free Black people from Lexington, Kentucky. They traveled all the way over to Kansas and they created this town out of nothing. When they got there, kind of looked more like this. Grass, grass, dirt, and more grass. But Nicodemus today is a national park. It's a place that you can go visit, and I have, and it's amazing. The people who built Nicodemus took a big chunk of empty land and they turned it into an amazing, prosperous town. Some of the descendants of those people still live there today. As I'm reading, I would like for you to think about how amazing these people were. They were brave, they were smart, they were talented. And as I'm reading this book to you today, I want you to think about all the ways that these people show that they are amazing and that they matter. The book is called Follow Me Down to Nicodemus Town by A. LaFay, illustrated by Nicole Tadgell. I can't wait to read this to you. It's one of my very favorite books, and I hope you enjoy it as much as I do. Let's jump in. Follow Me Down to Nicodemus Town by A. LaFay, illustrated by Nicole Tadgell. The woo-wee follow-me holler of the 6 o'clock train rumbled right into Dee Dee's dreams. She rode across a prairie so wide even the angels couldn't see the end of it. Her family had a plan. They would own a place in that open land. The Pattons wanted to leave sharecropping behind and have a farm of their own. They needed to make extra money to do it. When her day work was done, Dee Dee's mama sewed dresses so fine they practically got up and danced. Her papa worked the fields by day and built furniture by moonlight. And Dee Dee made a shoe shine box to spiff up the shoes of the folks at the train station. She watched shiny shoe after shiny shoe step into those trains, knowing the pennies in her pocket would pile up for years before her family could pay off their debt. They all worked from sun climb to sun slide, but still owed more than they made to the landowner, Mr. Sills. He kept them tied to his fields in a house they didn't own. But good things come to those who pray. That fall, Dee Dee had spied a notice offering land for colored folks in Kansas. If they moved there and started a farm, they'd own it in a few years' time. The paper told of Nicodemus, a soon-to-be-built town that'd be just a short wagon ride away. Dee Dee ran that notice right to her papa, who said, "Why, Dee Dee, You've delivered a star we can hang our dreams on." After that, they worked twice as long and 3 times as hard until their penny banks began to fill. One afternoon, a man with his shoe half shined heard the last call to board the train. He ran off so quick he dropped his wallet. Dee Dee scooped it up and raced after him, shouting the whole way. The man reached out the train window to claim it. Turned out, Dee Dee'd chased down a miracle. A letter came to the station for the shoe shine girl, with a slip of heaven inside. The man who dropped the wallet had sent her a reward of $10. Dee Dee and her parents whooped and hollered enough to knock the nails out of the walls. With Papa's furniture money, the cotton he brought in, and Mama's dress money, they had enough to pay their debt and stake a claim. Dee Dee's shoe shine money would buy the seeds for planting. They paid Mr. Sills and bid him good riddance, then stepped right up to the station window and bought tickets with the $10 reward money. Those little slips of paper felt like wings. The Pattons boarded their train and rode off with their eyes set on land they'd call their own. In Kansas, they found a wheat-worthy prairie, and joining a group of fellow settlers, they took the final trek to Nicodemus together. Working day by day, they dug themselves a home in the bank of the Solomon River. Dee Dee was the first to use the door she helped her papa hang. Take a look and think about what you notice about their house. What do you see up here? We'll talk about that in a little bit. Papa and Dee Dee marked the boundaries of their claim with stakes. Over the next few years, they would have to prove up on the land, fence it, farm it, and register the deed. But now, with a full winter between them and the fields they needed to plow, the Pattons didn't have much more than the stars to guide them, stories to tell, and plans to make. With a sling, Dee Dee shot supper until even the prairie dogs grew scarce. When their bellies set to biting, Dee Dee went out with her papa to hunt further afield. She went over a rise and lost sight of the river, then came face to face with an Indian man taller than her house. He held a rabbit in each hand, saying, "Saw your chimney smoke grow thin. Figure your food might be as scarce as your fuel." That's how the Pattons met Shanka Sabe of the Children of the Middle Waters. The white folks call them Osage, but they say they're Niukanska. The Pattons called themselves blessed for all that their new neighbors brought: food, fellowship, and the most precious gift of all, hope for spring to come. In the winter months, Mama set to sewing, Dee Dee basted, Papa worked out where to plant. When the ground thawed, Dee Dee sowed seeds with Papa, planted a garden with Mama, and waited for things to grow. When the pea-small prairie flowers started to bloom, plenty more folks poured into Nicodemus. The town went up like a revival tent, a new hotel, a bank, and a store. When Dee Dee's family rode into town on Sundays, women slipped orders for church-going dresses into Mama's hand. On occasion, Dee Dee made a mail run into town. One afternoon, she heard Mr. Zachary say he had a full house in the hotel. Taking a deep breath, Dee Dee asked, "Do you think any of them folks need their shoes shined?" Quicker than a wink, he plopped his own shoe on the chair. I sure could use a shine. And that's how Dee Dee got a job shining shoes at the St. Francis Hotel. Dee Dee held posts for Papa, pinned prints for Mama, and tended the garden, then shined shoes on the hotel stoop until the stars came out to guide her home. In a few years' time, the Pattons had fences up and fields harvested on the land they'd sown, thanks to the helping hands of the folks of Nicodemus and the children of the Middle Waters. They could prove their land claim. Papa let Dee Dee carry her hotel shoe shine money all the way to the homestead office to register the deed. They brought the deed back to Mama and baby Gabe. They hung it in a frame Dee Dee made from the prairie grass around their home. The place was now theirs, true and clear. That Sunday, they had a party on the banks of the Solomon. Reverend Hickman prayed over their home. The folks of Nicodemus gathered at tables brought from every dugout. Shankasabe and his family arrived with all the food they could carry. Mama brought out enough pies to feed all of Kansas. And the Pattons finally had land to call their own. But most important, they had a home where they could tell stories, use the stars to guide them, and make plans for things to come. And that is the end. So what did you think? I hope you like this book as much as I do. When we were reading, we pointed out these houses. When these new townspeople got to Nicodemus, there was nothing there. No trees, not a lot to do, not a lot to build with. So they were really smart. They created houses in the sod. Sod is this layer of really thick grass. Now, the roots of the grass out in the prairie are very thick and very strong. And when the people dug under, created almost like a little cave using stones to support it, the grass kept growing, and these houses were so well built that they'd be nice and warm in the winter, and since they were underground, they'd be nice and cool in the summer. This was how the town started out. In fact, when I went to Nicodemus, they told us the story of a woman who went to Nicodemus with her husband. When they got to Nicodemus, all they saw were smokestacks coming up from the ground. And at first, she cried because she couldn't see the houses and she didn't know what was going on. But as you saw in the book, those sod houses only lasted for a little while. The people of Nicodemus were smart and hardworking, strong and brave. And they created their very own town with a hotel, with churches, with a school, things that their ancestors couldn't even have imagined. I hope that you've enjoyed this book and that you've learned something cool about Nicodemus. Remember, my friends, you, Roselawn Lyons, you're amazing. You guys, just like the people in the book, you're smart, you're strong, you're brave, and you matter. I love you very much, and I can't wait to see you in the fall. See you soon.